I want to share with you now a method that I've developed called the anchor pivot technique. The thing I like about this method is that it really frees me up in terms of creating. Before developing this method of image making, I used to walk around looking for ready-made scenes where every millimeter of the image had already been worked out, and all I needed to do was pick up the camera and record the scene. And it's very, very difficult to find situations like that. It put a lot of pressure on me, and uh, as a result of this, in the past, I have walked around for hours and hours and not found anything that I thought was worthy of image making. Now, with this technique I'm going to show you called the anchor pivot technique, all I need is one little thing, one quiet little thing that speaks to me. It could be just be a shape or an object or a thought or a feeling. One little sort of whisper in the back of my mind saying, "Hey, there's something there that might be interesting." And so, without the pressure of needing an entire scene to be worked out, I can pick up the camera and say to myself, don't worry about it. You'll work out the rest later. So it's a two-step process. The first step is just find something, just have that impulse or that emotion that provokes the desire to create. And in this case, the impulse object was simply this tree and its reflection. That's it. When I was walking through this park, I saw this out of the corner of my eye and thought, it's kind of interesting how there's forest and then just this lone tree and then forest. But I did not have the composition worked out at all. So I brought the camera up and I what I did was, because this tree was so far away, I just rotated the camera around this, or should I say, pivoted the camera around this impulse object. And that's why I call it the anchor pivot technique, because you find the anchor object or the impulse object, which in this case was this, and then I pivoted the camera around to watch how relationships form as I rotate the camera. Lots of sky when I tilt up and then panning to the right, lots of this dark forest over here, tilting down, to see this marshy stuff here, and same thing on the left. And just kind of going by feel, I sort of decided on this ratio of this sky and clouds and the reflection of that in the water. So basically, if you split the picture down the middle like this, I felt that this part of the image counterbalances this part of the image. These things don't happen in the conscious mind. Once you've practiced it a couple of times and it's become internalized, then you do it automatically. Hopefully, after watching enough of the videos on this channel, you'll kind of get a feel for this and you'll be able to run with it on your own and be able to create your own images that are both emotionally satisfying but also intellectually satisfying because of the mathematical ratio that you're using. So, how is this image composed? Well, over here on the right, you have this large dark mass. And there's not a lot of information here. In some cases, it's almost just solid black here and here with no detail. But I felt that I needed this large dark mass to serve as a counterweight to this bright area with the kind of wispy clouds and the color in the sky, and of course this lone tree, which I found kind of novel, and the reflection in the water. So basically, this small area here serves as a weight, and then this large area over here is a counterweight. And within the context of this well-balanced image, now the viewer can just relax and enjoy. They don't have to wonder what the heck is going on or why you took this picture. It becomes self-evident in the subtext of the geometry that you've created. And within that context, one can wander around comfortably and enjoy things like the the difference between, in this line, the more clear water and then the more textured water, and little ripples from the wind here, and of course the reflection of the sky and the forest, the mirroring effect that's going on here, and of course the unusual brightness of this vegetation in the foreground. And little tiny details start to become apparent like this as you look at it more. This sort of fogginess over here. And it's just a pleasure to be able to wander around in the comfort that's created by the order that you've created. We seek order as viewers of imagery. And when you can create that order, then the viewer can kind of relax and just go for a swim, no pun intended, just enjoy wandering around in the image and taking in all the little details and how they work together. What a pleasure it is. And so that's how this image was composed. There's not much to say about this image. It's a very simple little study. As I was walking down a city street, I saw these flowers and admired how they stood out in contrast to the dark leaves behind them. And as with the previous image, I didn't really have any idea about the composition. All I had was that impulse, that emotion, that feeling that you wanted to create something. And I um, relieved myself of the pressure or worry about how it's going to be composed. I simply brought my camera up to this scene that created the impulse, and I improvised around. I moved the camera around in a circle, pivoting around the impulsed object, which in this case were a bunch of flowers. And I arrived at this composition, which I find delightful to look at, but very simple in terms of its mathematics or its geometry. If you divide this picture down the middle like that, it's basically 4 equals 4, and that's it. It's really nothing more than that at all. It it may look kind of weird and off center or off kilter somehow in terms of how it's arranged, but it's just 4 plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 equals 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's because other than the flowers, the background is relatively homogeneous. There's an area here that's a little bit different than anything else here, but by and large, the background is quite similar throughout the frame. And so the balance of these objects is highly dependent on the arrangement of these white flowers. But the beauty of this method using balance is that you have complete freedom in where you place objects. And one of the things I enjoy about this particular composition is the novel arrangement. One of the things that I look for when I'm creating a composition is the novelty of the arrangement. I've never seen a composition like this before, and I don't have to think about trying to copy someone else. I can simply just kind of go by feel, and until I found something that I look at it and say, you know what? Never taken a shot like that before. I kind of like this novel arrangement, and that's essentially how this image was composed. If you're interested, there is a workshop that articulates and teaches participants to understand these concepts fully of the brightness weight illusion, asymmetrical balance, subject versus object based imagery, and gives them an opportunity through what I call global virtual travel to actually test out these concepts by creating their own new original image in some far off place uh, with the guidance of an instructor so that you can get your feet wet in using these concepts and then be able to run with them more effectively in creating imagery in your own life in the real world. You can find a link to the workshop in the comments below. If you like this video, feel free to like or subscribe. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section. Thank you.